talk about the Old Up on Tour, which was a project that we did last summer. We're doing it again this summer, and this is basically us taking our handling collection and also dried herbs and things out into communities. It's very exciting. I don't have to warn you about any human remains images here. It's just lots of like happy smiling children. So that makes a nice photo change from what we've been having. So yeah, I went to a whole bunch of different places over the summer. So we do have a crocodile skeleton. That was KCL's Museum of Life Sciences. We've got some local festivals. That's an Open Spaces Festival. We've got posters from the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, who are here today as well, and also the Charles Dickens Museum, so just kind of range of different locations. So has that worked? Yes, that went the right way. Excellent. The Old Up Museum, it's a Victorian medical museum. It's a historic operating space that was located in the attic of an early 18th century church, and it's now a museum of the history of medicine and surgery, and as you can possibly tell, it has some utterly terrible steps up towards it. And that's unfortunately where we are. We can't change that. It's quite an inaccessible space, therefore. So that's why they kind of created my role, which is community engagement, but also outreach, going out to places, and also we do have an admission charge, so it's also thinking about what can we do, what can we provide to the community that doesn't necessarily have those barriers in place, both physical and financial access. So here, a photo of happy smiling children, as I said, but our vision is talking about where everyone understands the importance of the history of medicine to our lives today, and that means that we need to reach out to new audiences in places people aren't necessarily expecting to encounter museums, and reaching out to our local community. So we are based in Southwark, we are right by London Bridge, and so we're now trying to get local people to know about us, to get involved. And whilst there are some longer term projects, I'm focusing specifically today about what we were doing over our summer holiday. Also, because we're a historic Garret space, it gets very warm where we are. In fact, while I would massively recommend you visit the museum, do not visit if it is a hot day and it's the summer. You will be cooked alive. I don't like high temperatures, therefore going out into nice sunny fields where I can stand under a marquee or another museum that might have air conditioning is a much better plan for me. So we've got there some of our goals where we want to kind of welcome people, captivate them, inspire them, and also lead the way for other museums and collections. So when I'm talking about us going out, what kind of things do I mean? Well, this is where we were over the summer. So we were at Royal Pharmaceutical Society, we were at a cathedral, we were at various libraries, a heritage centre, and the Charles Dickens Museum. So there's 11 locations in total, including 4 libraries. So that was really getting into local communities. And there was also a few really exciting things there. So for the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, it was kind of their first event that they'd done like that, which was really, really exciting. And for Westminster Abbey, which I think is actually on my other slide, but that was bringing together a bunch of local museums that they'd organised, but we were kind of part of that. Barbican Library, again, that led actually... We went there with some handling objects over the summer, but then we went again in the winter to actually do an art class for like some local children in a drop-in kind of style. And so there was all of that. And we had, over those events, we spoke to over 500 people. We got some of our volunteers as well. And as you can see there, there's only a couple of the locations charged admission. The rest of these were free events. That was particularly interesting for the Charles Dickens Museum because they have an admission charge themselves. But what they were able to do was they were able to put us in kind of a side room so that you could actually come along, do the object handling for the 2 sites, and then if you wanted to, you could pay and go to the museum, but you could just come along and do the object handling. So that was something that was really exciting for us, something we can't do in our own venue because of those terrible stairs that I showed you earlier. So 570 odd people, great, really pleased with those numbers. And then you hit the local festivals that we were going to. Specifically the Southwark Cathedral's Mudlarking Day, which had over 700 people on one day. It was a very, very long day, and lots of talking. But this, again, is just going out, talking to people. And these aren't attendance numbers at the festival. I've got a little clicker with me. And so these are people who've actually come over to our stall when there's a whole load of other really interesting stalls and have spoken to us and asked questions. If you are looking at doing something with a festival that's got like several thousand people, of which 700 odd might want to talk to you, make sure you have at least 3 staff there. If you take away nothing else from my talk, have 3 staff there or no one gets a lunch break. This was the 2nd year we'd done this festival, and the year before, I actually had to get my parents to come and give us a brief break. So we just brought out some of our hand collection and also some dried herbs. We were getting, if I go back to this photo of this, so we had lots of dried herbs there. We're talking about pomanders, ideas of herbs in medicine, and also just nice smells, how that was seen as protective. But also people just love getting hands-on with things and making something that they can take away. So successes, we reached a load of people. We got people aware of the museum and talking about medical history. We also built some really, really good relationships with these sites. So often we'd just kind of email them being like, hi, can we just come along, do something, or just be for maybe a couple of hours. But that then led to future collaboration. So, for example, we went back to the Golden Hind at another point. For the Barbican Library, we had that winter art session. For the Dickens Museum, again, we're looking at what else we can do on a longer term basis. King's College, which is very close to us, we're now actually working with them to redevelop an outside space into a herb garden that will then be useful both for them and for us, because they are literally just over the road from us. It'll be something we can direct school groups to when they've turned up half an hour early and we've still got 60 primary school children. We have to get down those stairs before we can get another 60 secondary school students up. Having somewhere very nice and local to direct them to will be incredibly helpful. And so we've kind of learned this. A lot of these conversations where I'm saying we spoke to 2,300 people, some of these were very quick. It could be someone walking past and pointing at the model of a plague mask and just being like, what's that? And you're like, oh, it's a representation of what a plague doctor might have worn. Okay, and then they wander off. But they were curious, they've learned something, they were interested. Some of these were really long. We had families that would often stay for like an hour or an hour and a half making the little dried herb bags, the little pomanders, doing all the object handling, and just really, really engaging. So that was incredible. And also this is something that we've looked at, well, what can we do this year? How can we go forwards? So one of the things we've kind of taken forward is really looking with the venues at what is the best time for them. Because we were thinking, okay, school holidays, that'll be brilliant for everyone. King's College London, which is a university, is actually quite quiet at that point because that's during the school holidays, so none of the students are there, which is probably something that's really obvious, but it wasn't until we'd actually given it a go, seen what was happening, that we could kind of take that on board. So although we are going back to them this summer, it's going to be kind of one general public one and then one that's aimed for local staff, and trying to get some of the staff more involved into the museum, And also we're then looking at what can we do during term time for the students. We're looking at ways to engage staff and volunteers, because me just trundling around London with a suitcase of objects it works, but we're thinking, how can we make this a bit better? What else can we do if we've got more people on hand? How can we do that? And we're also looking at how we can then use this to actually get people to the museum. Like I said, we've got this, we've got an entry fee, so what can we do? And we've actually got some discount vouchers that we can hand out to people who seem interested, so that they'll then be able to visit when they might not otherwise be able to. It also means we can actually hopefully track that people are going to this and then being interested enough to come along, fingers crossed. Feedback from the other sites, sorry Catherine for quoting you here, but things saying about how it worked as a partnership because we wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. It gives people a chance for object-based learning for a site like a cathedral, which doesn't really have, they've got a herb garden, but they don't have a handling collection. And just saying about the fact that once we had people who were coming here, it was really interesting. And we've got there also some stickers for a feedback sheet. So we just put out an emoji sheet, get people to put stickers on how they're feeling, and you can tell that generally people are feeling welcomed, knowledgeable, connected, inspired, which is all fantastic. And just this last slide, which I'm going to very quickly rush over, but here is some of the feedback we got from the sessions. So obviously there were over 2,000 interactions, so trying to pick out 10 of those was quite tricky, but it was just the range of things that were happening. So there were people who recognised us from other events who came up very excited, and we had a little girl who wanted to show her family what all the things were, and she'd remembered. There was also, we have a steam inhaler, and at one of the festivals, a musician came over and said, oh, I've got one of those, I use it, which is quite interesting because it's something that we'd always thought of as more like a historic object. It's how I'd spoken about it previously. It's from the 1860s, but actually it turns out you can buy them off eBay and musicians are now using them. We had older people very much engaging with the smells and the sensory aspect. And equally, we had one very pregnant lady at the Mudlarking Festival who made herself a pomander and walked around the entire day smelling it because apparently it was helping with her sickness. So I was like, brilliant. But it was a really interesting chance to go out into the community, show what we've got, but also learn from the community. And even though these were often very brief interactions, they were still really meaningful. And I thought they were really interesting.